right, so I'm happy to hear that we clearly agree that cancel culture isn't the solution. And grace and evolution isn't going to go about because we're canceling people and saying, no, you can't do that. No, you can't be this. Go to jail. Like, step down. That's obviously not the answer. What do you think the answer is?
I mentioned this earlier, right? Exposure is all that matters to me. I mean, anecdotally, it's what's defined my perspective and my experience.
Right.
And you know, there's a South Side and a North Side. You know, and it's not just a racial issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
socioeconomic.
Let's integrate people.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, let's actually do it.
Yeah.
Right. Let's actually do that.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Yeah.
Once you get to know, I mean, it's love. Let me be corny, right? Like,
No, but that's facts. That's real.
That's
Facts,
it.
though.
But it's
Like,
real.
Yeah.
Like when I started to love people of color was when I started to care about this. I didn't care about it before that. I didn't care.
Facts,
People
bro.
told me to, but I was like, okay. You know, why? Like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
That's real. That's real.
I think I would say, man, we got to be focused on self-accountability rather than with somebody else's actions. You know, I think if you expect excellence of yourself and you focus on that, and if everybody's doing that, everybody's trying to be excellent in their own way, rather than what somebody's telling you you should be. You know, and that crosses racial lines, that crosses socioeconomic lines.
Yeah.
You know, are you being the best you can be? I'm not talking about who's around you, who did this, who didn't do that. Are you being the best you can be? You know, and again, there will always be levels of what that is.
Yes.
I mean, that doesn't mean we're all equal.
Yes.
Right.
On where we end up.
For sure.
Right. But if you're being the best version that you can be on all these issues, I think we'll be in better shape rather than looking outward at what's everybody else doing. Let me judge them. You know, it's like worry about what you're doing. You know, are you being the best you can be? You know, are you being your level of excellence? Might be different than somebody else's, but are you achieving that excellence that you think is attainable to you? You know, I think if you do that, start looking at other people, you know, you wouldn't worry about cancel culture.
Facts.
You wouldn't have to.
Yeah,
Right?
because we wouldn't be concerned about it.
Right.
Yeah. I think from cancel culture, I do think the aspect of calling things what they are is healthy. I think the problem is that we often focus on the symptom and we don't focus on the actual disease.
Preach.
And I think when you want to cure anything, you focus on the disease, not the symptom. So I think for us, we have to start focusing on the disease and not the symptoms. And I think people and individuals are actually symptoms, you know? And I think sometimes we look at it and we go, okay, we need to cancel this person and it'll solve everything.
Yes.
Well, all you did was just solve the symptom. Right?
Yes.
You haven't actually dealt with the real disease. And so I think we need to call things out, call them what they are, say, hey, this is not okay.
Yeah.
But then we need to have a higher level conversation and go, where does this come from? Why does this still persist?
Yes.
How does someone in power, someone who's in celebrity, someone who's in a place of influence, how are they allowed to continue in this way? Let's talk about the disease and let's talk about actions that we can all take to actually deal with this disease in our own life. As opposed to going, oh my gosh, we saw this, cancel the symptom, everything's solved, make sure to share it, make sure to like it, post on your story.
Retweet.
Right.
Now we're good, okay?
Yeah, right.
And then we basically kind of, you know, go, wow, I solved the world's problems
Yeah.
by like retweeting something. When the way we solve this by working, is by having tough conversations, is by loving people that aren't like us, is by taking self-responsibility, self-accountability for what you're doing. I think all those things factor in, but I do think that we just have to not get distracted with the symptoms. We have to focus on the disease and call things what they are, but we should spend the least bit of our time on the person and the actual issue. I'm like R. Kelly. Smallest part of this, okay, you know, R. Kelly, it's horrible, blah, blah, et cetera. Like, this is how much we're going to focus on him.
Yeah.
Now let's focus on the actual disease, the actual issue. How can we move this around? Because the problem is, like, folks out here, like, I ain't going to listen to R. Kelly, but you won't talk to your cousin who does the same thing.
Think about often, like, there's a lot of things going on in the world that are not ideal, that are pretty terrible. And because we're not close to it, we don't feel it the same way. We don't even think about it because it's not within our daily lives. I think that exposure and being open matters. I think that treating the problem and not the symptom matters. And something else that I want to add to this conversation, I think it's interesting and pretty nuanced. And I had learned recently from, there's this HBO documentary I highly recommend. It's called One Nation Under Stress. And the neuroscientist had said that empathy is a very high level executive functioning skill, And if you've experienced trauma, your ability to empathize with anything is stunted.
Yeah.
You look
Yeah,
like
I see that.
it's actually on like a physiological
Yeah, I see
level.
that.
It changes in people. And I'm telling you, when I heard that, I was just like, because sometimes I'm just like, why can't you see things the way I see it? Like, why can't we come at this from a standpoint of like, you can't maybe try to walk in their shoes, and some folks really have a hard time doing that, and knowing that like in navigating these spaces where the majority of us, if not all of us, really need to practice. No, we all need to practice mental health rituals and like self-affirmations and like do that. The people that aren't, there are people that are completely neglecting their mental and spiritual selves. And I think we, as people who want to be solution-oriented, who want to help others, need to navigate through these spaces in such a way where you have a bit more understanding, you have a bit more leniency, and realize that in some shape, way, or form, and not to make it like a hierarchy, but like being able to have empathy is a blessing, and acknowledge it as such. Don't get tired of being woke. Don't get no. Like you're actually fortunate that you have that capacity, and I just think that that's something that we don't talk enough about.
That's what my girlfriend said to me today when I was on my way over here. She was like, listen, babe, don't be nervous. All you have to do is show up and be yourself.
Facts.
I'm trying to say something nobody ever heard before. Because you know I'm in my notebook, like, what the hell am I going to... That's what she said, but it's so real.
I agree.
And one last thing that needs to be said, right, and it should be me that says it, right, is that people that look like me need to have this conversation with people that look like me. Right, like power needs to speak to power.
Yes.
Period. Right, and that's something, man. That's something that I struggle with. To be totally we want to talk about being transparent. That's something that passes me by sometimes when I'm at a dinner table with my family or with a friend, and I'm not in the mood because I have the privilege of opting out of that conversation and not dealing with that burden. Right, I can be here and experience like a black joy and have this conversation with you all, and then I can opt out of having that conversation because I'm tired on a Thursday night, and you don't have that luxury. You know, and like that's something that I need to do personally, but that's definitely something that people that look like me and are in positions of power like me need to do.
But people look like us need to do the same thing. That's two-way.
True.
You know, that is two-way.
True.
So.
True.
Yeah, this was great, man. I mean, this was fire.
Good
yes,
stuff.
this is why we do it. You know?
Right.
This is why we do it right here.
Real.
Good.
I have to say thank you very, very much for joining me. This was dope. This was super productive.